Welcome to the Clifton Worley Show. This week I've got WorleyBirds Josh Fraser and Michael Newman, and we have got a show for you.
It's definitely going to be a show.
Yes. Well, it's been a while, guys. I miss hanging out with you guys and talking gear, and I thought it would be nothing better than to kind of get away from the interviews for a week and just kind of hash out some topics. So before we do that, I'm just going to kind of go around the table here in our virtual Skype table and kind of let everybody catch us up to what's new. So I guess, do we want to start with you, Josh?
Well, sure. Since the last time we talked, actually about maybe 3 days after we talked, I got my new guitar, which I'm really loving, my Weaver Archtop. I use it for pretty much everything right now. I went through a season of a couple months where I was leading church fairly regularly, and because of that, spent an awful long time reevaluating and kind of building my voice back up from the ground up, or up for the first time from the ground up. That's another new thing. Obviously, shifting stuff around on my pedal board, but not as far as gear. Really, the only thing is the new guitar, which is pretty huge for me. Just getting that dream come true, really. But yeah, that's what's new with me.
That's cool. I think that's kind of been a game changer for you, hasn't it? The new guitar.
Oh man, it's huge because it's like I've always wanted a guitar that just does everything. As far as like, I can play it as an electric guitar. I can sing with it and lead with it. I can take it to open mics and not have too much feedback at the electric ones, and I can still go to like acoustic old time jams, and it'll be loud enough that I can play a melody and be heard over 5 to 10 instruments.
Yeah,
which that's huge for me. And then it's got, what's interesting, I don't know if I told you guys, but it's actually got a 25-inch scale, so it's the same scale as a PRS. So it's a little bit different than what my other guitars are. Martin uses, I think, almost a 26-inch scale. And, the Fender uses the 25.5, and everything is either 25 or the 26.
Mm-hmm.
And this slightly shorter scale gives me the ability to do some stretches that I couldn't do on the Martin, which is kind of nice, being able to make a little bit wider chords.
Yeah.
And then, let's see. Oh, I got a Thalia capo, and I'm actually using a capo fairly often, which is kind of the first time in my life that I use it fairly often. I never really used a capo very much.
How does it feel to cheat in life?
Actually, no. What's great about it is you can use a capo. I mean, even if you know all the chords, that's what I always thought. Well, if you use a capo, you're kind of cheating. But even if you know all the chords that you need to know, using a capo can sometimes breathe life into a song. It can lay out an inversion of the song, like with the chord changes that allow you to kind of move more naturally from chord to chord, or even just having a capo when you're playing with another guitar player makes a huge difference, because then you can capo up and play up the neck. Oh yeah, I also got a tenor banjo, which I posted in the group a while back, and that's been fun to fool around on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's been fun to fool around on.
I'm with you on the capo. I'm just teasing.
Yeah, no, I hear you, because I tell you, a year ago I would have thought that, but now I realize, oh, well, that's kind of stupid. It's kind of short-sighted of me not to use the tools that are in the toolbox,
Yeah.
If you got them. So that's what's new with me. What about, I don't know who wants to go next. What about you guys?
But Michael, it's your turn.
Okay. Well, guys, I finally came to my senses. You're going to be shocked, but I sold my Kemper.
What? No way.
I'm just joking.
Okay.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, okay.
No, I love that thing. No, but I have been selling gear like crazy. I am trying to pare down and consolidate and really just keep things that spark joy. No, I'm just joking. But no, I am trying to get rid of some things that are just have been sitting around and I'm not using and don't anticipate using. And honestly, with the Kemper, I really don't need anything. I can really run what I need to run with the Kemper. I do like to keep a few fun pedals around that, of maybe builders I like to support, or maybe pedals that I can't quite do with the Kemper. So a lot of them are kind of weirder pedals, but I'm still selling stuff and just trying to consolidate. I'm getting rid of guitars and pedals and just about everything I can get rid of. So I'm not getting rid of everything. So I'll still have a lot of stuff, but it's just I'm just trying to consolidate and kind of focus on actually playing.
Yeah. Well, cool. Is anything else going on new?
I don't know. Am I supposed to have something else going on? I can't remember.
No.
I think that's it.
Okay. Well, I guess it's my turn. I was trying to think. I haven't had a lot of difference since the last time we talked in the way of gear. I haven't really bought or sold anything except I got the stack that the Flippin' Flippers, they did that pedal with solid gold effects, and basically it's like a Zeta, what do they call it, a Zeta Plus. It's like a dual drive or drive and boost pedal, and it's kind of tweaked, like modded to have different like transistors inside of it than like the Zeta Deluxe. That's it, the Zeta Deluxe, not the Plus. And so anyways, I've been playing with that a little bit. I think that I'm not totally sure, but I may have to kind of clear off some drives off my board, because I think like this kind of like does it. Like it does it
Really?
all and does a lot. Yeah. I think definitely like it does what the full drive, the full tone OCD does. I mean, it nails that territory. And then it kind of does a lot of what the Jekyll and Hyde does, or covers a lot of that. So I'm thinking maybe it may be time to do some spring cleaning on my board.
Oh, you can't get rid of the Jekyll and Hyde, though, right?
No,
That's like your sound.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, you don't see a lot of those old original version 1s out there on the used market these days. And I did send it off to those guys to have it repaired. So I'm not sure that I want to get rid of it. But it's kind of like, yeah, I could see the Zeta Deluxe or the stack doing kind of everything I need. So I think my plan is in the near future is to get like a smaller board. You know, it's more put together, like, so I could pick it up and go and play easier. And that's kind of the direction I want to head in the next year, is just simplicity and not have this big oversized board that weighs a ton. So that's kind of what's new in my world. I guess
That
I'd
pedal,
say, yeah, go ahead.
Back to the stack. I mean, it went. It's a boost, right? And then also a fuzz kind of thing.
Well, it goes from like all the way from light drive all the way to almost like full fuzz saturation.
Well, and didn't I hear like if you crank all of it up, it gives you kind of this like octave kind of fuzz?
Yeah, I think Jason Fuzzmonger.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, he did a video where like he had dimed like all the controls, and when he did, like, it got into so much saturation that like it somehow was like adding, like, I think it had to do with like, you know, like a guitar amp has like filtering caps inside.
Yeah.
I think that like the filtering wasn't filtering out some of those high frequencies that was like an octave up, and like it was just doing like this octave fuzz, which was crazy. I tried to do that and replicate it, and do you know how like have you ever like taken like all your drive pedals and like maxed them out, like domed them out, and like just see how much you could go before it like just is like unintelligible? Like, have you ever done that?
I've never done that.
Really?
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
I'm joking. Of course you do that.
It gets to like where your guitar is like wailing so much, like that there's like a high end squeal. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
and it like it's like your guitar almost becomes microphonic, and that's what happens when I do that, and you have to almost like mute your strings and keep anything from buzzing because like it gets like totally out of hand. So it'd be hard to push it into that territory all the time, I think.
Yeah,
but Jason uses those
Noise gates,
Strandberg guitars, right? The
weird
fan fretted, and probably some weird like pickup that's specifically designed for super high gain and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, and he is a fuzzmonger, so
so he knows how to use it.
He knows how to use it. He's a monger.
Yeah.
Of fuzz.
No, I had a actually this is off the top of my head, but JHS Pedals, Josh Scott, he did this really cool video that was released today. It was about like 1970s like op amp pedals, like distortions. And I guess I had never really like understood like the technology behind it. I always thought like the DS1 was like kind of like the first like dry like distortion pedal, but like he was talking about how like MXR like made the first one, like the Distortion Plus, and I guess that would have been like in the late 60s, early 70s maybe. And anyways, he was like going down the line and talking about like the evolution of distortion, okay? And towards the end he said something, and he was talking about how like these are pedals on the market today that do this, and this one's different because this is this, and he named a pedal called the Boost Overdrive by Jet City. Are you familiar with that brand? They make amps.
I've heard of the amps. I have not heard of the pedals.
Yeah. I'd never heard of this pedal, and he admittedly said that I guess almost 10 years ago, like he had done some design work on that pedal personally, and that a lot of people don't know about it, and they're going for it super cheap on the used market. But he said it's basically like a DoD 250 in there. And so I immediately, like, I was Googling that, and like they're popping up like around $30 used.
But that's where they were on Stupid Deal of the Day at because I was looking that was one of the contenders at the time when I was looking at the Mojo Mojo for my first distortion my first overdrive pedal, getting back into electric. And these afterburners and the boosts and everything from Jet City was on regularly. The Jet City delay, this Jet City overdrive, all that stuff was on Musician's Friend for like $20, $30, $40.
Mm-hmm.
Like for almost 2 or 3 months. And they have really mixed reviews. Like if you look at Musician's Friend reviews, which I don't know how accurate they are, but that's the one thing I notice is that people either love them or they'll be like meh. Yeah. And if somebody's meh on a pedal they got for $40, that's because usually if somebody gets something for that inexpensive, what they're always doing is saying, well, this is just as good as my X pedal that they may have had at one time that's worth $100.
Yeah.
And that's what it says to me. But then again, the DoD 250, I mean, I'd imagine that that's not, like, up until recently, up until hearing what Ryan does with it, I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't get what this thing's all about. It's just a big top end pedal,
mm-hmm.
Big high end, like that, like high end booster. And now I kind of understand more what it's for, and maybe that's the reason for the mixed reviews, because people are thinking, well, this isn't as easy to dial in as my DS1 or
right.
my OC. The nice thing about an OCD is you can dial those things in really, really well. They may have some noise in them, but they dial in. So I think that the 250, I think they're a little harder to dial in, maybe. That's the only reason I could think for the mixed reviews, but that's what made me go with the Mojo Mojo instead. And that just popped into my head as soon as you shared that YouTube video. It's like, oh yeah, I almost bought that and the delay because it was so cheap. But then I looked at the reviews, and I wasn't gonna have that hassle in my life.
Yeah,
of having to figure out a pedal.
Be interesting to see now if like everybody who follows him is gonna try to snatch one up.
If the prices go up, then we'll know for sure.
Yeah,
that would be cool though. That would be interesting, and we really follow the groups where people are like all about JHS stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so it would be interesting to watch people if that just suddenly starts popping up on boards, where people show off their boards and their funny shoes and their tight pants on those groups.
Yeah. Well, at NAMM, he had a really cool pedal. I think it was called good grief, it had a clover on it and it was green. I can't remember what he called it. And it was a preamp pedal.
In it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a preamp pedal. And so I was thinking like along the lines of like DoD 250 or whatever. When I played it, it had like just I can't remember. He said it was based on some kind of old DoD pedal, but it wasn't the 250.
No, it's based on a Boss pedal.
You're right.
And it is called the Clover. It's the Clover preamp pedal.
Okay.
But he added some additional features to it that the original Boss does not have.
Yeah, it had an interesting thing to it. I kind of felt like when I played it, it was kind of like, have you ever like plugged straight into a mixer with your guitar and like tried to like use the gain knob to like gain it up and not like do a traditional like guitar circuit?
Yeah.
That's kind of the structure that was happening. So it had like some interesting it reacted a little bit differently.
So kind of like the EHX what was that? Is it the Cran that did that in the EHX? No, was that the JHS Cran or the EHX Cran that was basically the mixing board preamp
console
that
preamp.
Was JHS.
Yeah, they both came out with that at the same exact time. Okay, so kind of like that, or I haven't had the chance to try one of those.
Yeah, I think it was an idealist. I mean, like from the idea, but I've never played one of those, so I don't know.
And it's the JHS color box that is that.
Color box.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a JHS crayon. I don't know what the difference is. I think it's a simplified version of the color box.
Mm-hmm.
And the Clover is based on a Boss FA1, I believe. An FA-1.
Yes, yes, that's
and it's pretty famous for the Edge using it or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what whoever it wasn't. I don't think it was Josh because I didn't talk to Josh at now. But whoever was working his booth, when I asked about it, like that was really cool. Like at his booth, he only had like 3 or 4 pedals, and they were all his brand new pedals. Like it wasn't like he brought like all of the lineup to NAMM. Yeah. It's like he was like, "This is what I have new. I want to feature this," and it was just super simple. So like it didn't have like, I think it kept like a lot of the people like who are gonna come and like try out his pedals for an hour, and sit there and like try to tweak everything. Like it stopped a lot of that. Like it was just basically like, hey, this is my brand new thing. I want you to check it out, and then this is what I'm doing this year. And so I was talking to whoever he had working there at the booth when they were setting me up, and he had said something like, yeah, this is what the Edge, that's what he kind of made this pedal famous. And I could hear that in that pedal, like that kind of that grainy top end kind of sound that you get.
Mm-hmm.
So listeners, go try those out. I thought he had some really cool offerings, and I know he gets a lot of flack sometimes in the community from controversy or whatever, but I think he's got some great pedals, and I mean, anything I've ever played of his, I've just always loved it. And
he is killing it in the videos. His videos have been amazing. The stuff that he's putting out. So check out his YouTube channel as well. Some really good content.
Well, let's see. We had an idea for a topic. Um, and I guess you could explain this better, Josh.
Actually, I think that it was Michael that saw the video. Why don't you talk about the video there, Michael?
Yeah, so I was sometimes on YouTube you get random videos thrown in as a suggestion to you. And I guess this channel is growing. But anyway, there's a channel called 5-Watt World, and like a 5-watt amp, but 5-watt world. And he had a video on how many guitars do you need. So actually need. How many guitars do you actually need? And it was a pretty interesting video, and go check it out if you want to, hear more about it. But basically, he kind of went through different players from history, like Eric Clapton and B.B. King, and just about any famous guitar player. And he basically said, look, these guys have had different guitars over a period of time, but they've all kind of just gravitated towards one guitar for like a tour or an album or for a period of time, and then they may have changed it later. Like, for instance, Jimmy Page early on was playing a Telecaster, but then later on, he got a Les Paul and he never went back to the Telecaster, as far as I know, at least on tour. But anyway, I just thought it was an interesting idea on how many guitars do you actually need. So anyway, so there's the topic.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting because I'm usually pretty guitar monogamous. It's whatever guitar happens to work for me at a time. And that's, like I said in my What's New, the main reason for buying my new guitar, because it's like I wanted something that could do everything that I wanted to do without, and this thing doesn't even have a tone or a volume knob on the guitar. Everything comes from my hands when I'm playing electric. And I just really like that, because I wish I was one of those guys who could just go into a guitar store and play a bunch of guitars and really enjoy it. But it's like I almost have to bond with something before I can play it. I don't really like playing other people's guitars. I don't even really like playing the guitars that I'm not like bonded with right away that are mine. I like to play that one instrument. And so for me, the answer is one, basically. I couldn't imagine changing guitars in a set. And I see bands do that all the time. And it's like, man, honestly, from out here, you guys don't sound, that guitar does not sound any different. I mean, maybe a little bit of it if you're switching from a Tele bridge pickup to a Les Paul neck or something, but it doesn't sound different enough to cart around another guitar. And it's like, it's funny because you'll see in like groups, how many of you guys bring backups? What do you use as a backup guitar? What do you bring 2 or 3 extra guitars every week? Or what would be a good backup for this guitar? And I'm like, I've never brought a backup ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll bring a set of strings.
Right there with you, 100%.
But I mean, I think that Michael, up until recently, you were like the furthest away from me in that.
Yes.
And I know that you really thought about what you brought each week, didn't you? Like, well, this week I'm going to bring this for this set.
Yeah.
And this week I'm going
to. To be honest, I play with a church that the choir has themes. So like, for the quarter, they'll pick, what Sundays they're going to wear blue and what Sundays they're going to wear pink, what Sundays they're going to wear purple or, not purple, but what's another color for purple? Burgundy, and so they will change it up. And I was kind of basing my guitar more on that than actually what the song called for.
Really?
Yeah. But, and to me, it was just fun. I mean, it was just like, oh, yeah, it's just something fun to do. It's, I don't know, it's just fun. It wasn't anything beyond just having fun with it.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's changed. That's changed for sure.
Yeah.
When you're done with your side, I'll tell, maybe Clifton can tell him, and then I'll give him my input on that.
Well, what do you? Well, I'm pretty much set. What about you, Clifton?
Well, I'm kind of torn on that because I have several guitars. Um, Guitars are kind of, I can get rid of amplifiers, I can get rid of effects, I can get rid of other things, and I've gotten rid of other guitars, but when I bond with a guitar, I mean, like, if I really put some time in on one, it's kind of hard for me to get rid of one. And so, like, I have a couple acoustics. I have 3 acoustics, actually, that I play pretty regularly. And I found, like, okay, so, like, I play on Sundays, and I keep my, my Taylor there, and I play that every single Sunday. I keep my Martin at home, so, like, I can grab and go, and my Gibson kind of goes in between home and my office. So, like, I have this thing that, like, if everywhere I go that I'm, like, spending any amount of time, I like to have a guitar that I can grab easily. And so that's kind of my thinking there. Is like, if I have one everywhere that I go, I can be creative when I want to be creative, right? As far as, like, me needing multiple guitars when I'm playing, no. Like, if I show up to play somewhere, I pretty much am going to stay with that same guitar, like, all night or whatever, I part of my journey, like, when I played a Telecaster, like, as my only electric for the longest time. And then back last year, I got the Cower Arcturus, which is like a Jazz Master. And I got that, like, to push myself in a different direction, different scale length, different feel, different types of pickups, because I felt like I had gotten to the point where, like, when I played guitar, I would pick up a Tele and play country licks. And I enjoy that, but, like, I wanted to push myself out of that and kind of explore some new territory. And I felt like that kind of did it for me. So I do believe in having different tools in your toolbox, but, like, having an excessive amount of guitars, or I want to have 3 different Teles and 3 different Strats, and then, a couple different Les Pauls. Like, that's not my idea of, what I want as a player. Like, I'm just always looking for something that pushes me a little bit further in my playing, and that may mean, like, outgrowing a guitar, and that one may be, if I don't play it for a long time, I might consider putting it up for sale. But I view each of my guitars as, like, tools, where each one serves a purpose, and if it ceases to serve a purpose for me, or, like, if I have too much redundancy, then it's time to go. So I don't know if that I don't know if that answers anything, but that's kind of like where my head is at when it comes to, so how many guitars do I need? I think 4 or 5 is acceptable.
Yeah, I could see that. That's actually, I mean, that's not enough to say, okay, you're collecting them, but that's enough to say, okay, well, I mean, there's no point in getting rid of my single coil guitars because I'm really into humbucker right now. There's no point in getting rid of my P90 guitar because I'm playing at a place where I can't have the extra noise. I can see that, but when you get up to higher numbers and your guitars are sitting in the cases more than they're out, like, I can completely understand. For you, I could understand a higher number because it's part of your job. I mean, and so when you're at church and you're playing and you're preparing for a set and you're increasing your skills, I could definitely see having a guitar at church, or just having guitars out in places where you're going to be, makes it so that you can actually continue to practice and be creative. I mean, for me, I know I can't just bring a guitar to work
Right.
most of the time, and Michael's not going to go singing to the cows out there.
How do you know
I
that?
don't know.
They like it.
They like it.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, you're gonna get PETA coming after you if you start playing to the cows.
Cows really like fuzz. I don't know if y'all knew that, but they really like fuzz.
The cows really like fuzz.
Yeah, just crank it out.
All right. So you had a little coda to add to this, then?
Well, on my end, yeah, I like collecting guitars. I like them. I like the different colors. I like the different body shapes. I like the different pickups that come in them. And I kind of went crazy and got too many. And now I'm just trying to pare them down. And I think the biggest thing for me is that here, probably the last 3 months, I have only used one guitar at church. And I tried a few weeks ago to pick up a different guitar to take to church. And I picked it up and I just wasn't feeling it. And I was like, I'm just going to play my regular guitar. And it's my Eastman. It's a 335 style guitar, but it's an Eastman T486B. So it has a Bigsby on it. And when I put the Lambertone Crema filters in that thing, it just came together for me. That guitar, it sounds like I want it to sound. It plays like I want it to play. And there was just a connection to it that I hadn't necessarily had with other guitars. The other problem that I've had with other guitars is that the weather shifted some of the necks on my guitars, and a lot of them need setups. And I just don't want to take the time to set some of them up. Like, I love my Troy Van Leeuwen Fender Jazzmaster, but there's not an adjustment on the top of the neck. I actually have to take the neck off and adjust it that way. And I just have not brought myself to wanting to do that. And I do not like that feature on that guitar.
No.
But if I was to say how many guitars I actually need, I would say probably 3. I do think, like, the Eastman, it has the Crema filters in it, so they're a humbucker, but they're kind of a bright humbucker. But I think a Strat sounds so different than anything else that
100%, man.
Sometimes I think you just need a Strat. And so, I don't know. What I actually need, I could get by with one guitar. What I actually want would probably, I would take them all if I could, but probably 5 to 10 guitars, I think, is probably where I'm going to land. And part of me, I have this collection mentality in my head, and I'm kind of a hoarder. And so, and I get it honestly from my grandmother and even my mom. And we don't even hoard necessarily great things. They just we just like to collect things. But anyway, so I have that tendency to just collect and hold on to. And I've finally been letting go of some stuff. And I'll be curious to see what I actually miss, I don't know, a year from now or 6 months from now. And there's a couple guitars that I don't really play that much. But when I go to sell them, I pick them up and I play them and I'm like, it just plays so good, or it just does something different that I don't get with my other guitars. And primarily the one I've really been struggling with is my PRS, the CE24.
Yeah.
And it just plays so well, and it's such a different beast. It's actually probably the most well-made guitar I have. And it just plays so nice, and then I go to sell it, and I'm just like, I can't. It just plays so good, but I don't ever play it, if that makes sense. So I'll probably just need to sell it. But anyway,
yeah.
The guy in the video, he said at one point when he'd heard kind of this thing of how many guitars do you actually need, he had like 25 guitars at the time, and he was saying each of those guitars gave him a song, and so he kind of held on to him because he was inspired in different ways, kind of like Clifton was talking about, inspired to play differently. But he said he kind of had to finally give up the dream that, look, I'm not a session musician. I don't need a guitar with every variety of pickups that you can find because I'm not being called in to play on a country album, then a hard rock album, and then a folk album, and then this album and that album. You know, he's not getting called for that. So really, what does he need? And I don't remember exactly the number he said he needed, but I don't know. Honestly, what I need, I could get by with maybe one guitar and a backup guitar. And but what I want is a little more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You made a really
point. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, actually, I was going to say you made a really good point with the Strat. That you can pretty much nothing will do those in between sounds of a Strat.
No.
Nothing will do the nothing will do the neck pickup of a Strat. And nothing will get that kind of glassy, clean sound that a Strat gets. You're totally on with that. I mean, so I think I really do think almost every electric player should have a Strat or Strat-like thing in their arsenal. Tellys,
Yeah.
I do think I'm learning to love. I kind of love that feel of my Talman, which has Telly configuration. But I think an actual Telly, I think it really depends on whether you like that neck or not.
Yeah.
I really don't like.
I kind of have fallen out of love with Tellys, and I've had two Tellys, and they're both classic vibes. And one was the 50s, and one was the 60s. The 50s I had was the butterscotch, and I just don't care for the look of the butterscotch. And so I sold it, and I have the 60s still, and I'm going to sell it, but I had put a humbucker in the neck. And so I'm reconfiguring it to go back to stock, and then I'll sell it. I'm not in love with the Telly. It's just not my guitar. I think honestly, and even Jazz Masters to some extent, I really love what I have, but I need to do some setups on them. But that 335 style guitar, I think that's kind of where I've landed mostly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just feels like they're hugging you when you play a 335.
Well, you need a warm
it's
hug.
a really, yeah, it does. It really feels like it's hugging you, and I love my time with my Sheridan.
Yeah.
But and I love the way it felt. It's just that whenever I look at myself playing it, I felt like I was a kid playing Daddy's guitar. It's funny because I went to my arch top, and my arch top's actually bigger and thicker in the depth, but the width of it still isn't the width of a 335. Those things are just wide. They got those wide hips on. But yeah,
that reminds me of many years ago when I was a youth pastor. There was a kid that played bass in the youth band, and he was young. He was like 12 or 13 years old, and that bass was so big on him, and his arm had to fully extend out to hit those low notes. And I got a mental picture of that in my head, and I probably look like a little kid playing that guitar, but
I don't know. I never noticed that with you, and maybe it's just one of those things with those body dysmorphia things. You'll look at yourself in the mirror and you'll think, "Oh, I look like this," but then you'll see yourself like 10 years later in a picture. It's like, "Oh, I didn't look like that at all."
Yeah. Well, I've always kind of wondered, what if you guys were to meet me before you knew me, and I told you I play guitar. What guitar would you picture?
Oh, that's a good
holding?
question.
Oh man,
and it's the same with everybody. Just anybody, any of your friends that you know that play guitar. And Clifton, I could totally see you playing a Telly just because you got that southern drawl and the country accent. And I probably look like I should play a Telly too, but I don't.
Let's see. I think, actually, you got that twang, and so I see you playing like a herringbone D28.
I don't even know what that is. Is that an acoustic guitar?
Martin
like a Martin,
D28 with a herringbone. That's what I see you playing.
Who, me or Clifton?
You. And then I see Clifton playing, like I said, a Telly. I see him playing a Telly that genuine wear. It's like, okay, that fingerboard's black because he spent 15 years playing it in a bar. Because he's got that sound in his voice, and he's got that demeanor like, okay, yeah, he's the humble guy who can just rip your face off with a guitar solo.
Yeah.
And so that's what I see for Clifton.
Well, it's interesting that you picture me with an acoustic though, because I don't play much acoustic.
I know, man. But but the thing is, you sound like the kind of guy that would that would be at a bluegrass festival, just ripping up the tunes.
Wow.
Playing like at 210 beats a minute and just blasting everybody's face off with a tune, and then be able to sing like high C's all day. You just got that. You got that feel about, and then you got that baby face. So I don't know. I just see that.
I think that Michael like is somewhere. Of course, I've from our interaction, like I knew that you played Jazz Masters a lot. So that's kind of like when I think of you, like I think of Jazz Masters.
I'm just
but
not
if you didn't know
punk
him,
rock enough, I don't think, for Jazz Masters. I'm just not cool
maybe
enough.
if not Jazz Master, like a Strat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a Strat. Like if I didn't know him, and he said he played guitar at church, if that's what he said, if that was his comment,
Yeah.
then I could see either. I could definitely see instantly. Just picture him with a white Strat with a rosewood board. Yeah, I could definitely see that.
That's
yeah.
And to me, Strats, as cool as they are, they're also the most like common, boring guitar I think you can get. I don't know.
That is such a weird thing that happened to them, though, isn't it? Because they are a ridiculously versatile guitar.
Yeah.
They can do all sorts of stuff, but they are not the easiest guitar to play and play well.
Yeah.
I mean, the fretboard feels nice, but if you got a Strat set up right, they are not the easiest guitar to play well. And just being able to get around those controls on a Strat, to get the sound that you want to get.
I did not play my Strat out for the longest time because when I played it at home, I accidentally knocked the volume down all the time. And I thought, I don't want to play this out because I'm going to do this. Do you want to know what my first guitar was, though?
What's that?
An Epiphone Les Paul.
Yeah.
And I still have that thing.
Yeah. That's one that you're never going to get rid of, right?
No, I'll probably keep it forever. And I'm thinking about putting some Lambertone creamers in it. And I'll probably play
that would be
amazing.
Yeah. Because those are underrated, really. Those are fine guitars.
Well, this guitar I bought with a full stack Crate VC50 amp, a Vintage Club amp. And I had that. That was my rig for the longest time. I'd never played pedals or anything. And when I say that was my rig, I mean, I was a bedroom player. I didn't really play out. And I had a Gibson approved luthier in my town or the next town over who actually, this had a bend in the neck and he actually refretted it for me. He straightened the neck and refretted it for me. And I don't remember even how much I paid to do that. But as a kid, I was just like, well, this is my guitar. And so I did it. But anyway, I would love to put some Lambertone creamers in it and a less trim on it.
Okay.
That would be my...
That'd be...
If I was going to do some mods. But I got to get rid of some other guitars before I do that. So anyway, I'm sorry to go off on a tangent.
What about me?
There.
What about... You didn't... I hate to bring it back around to me. Well, if you had met me and I came up to you and I said, hey, let's say I come to your church and I said, hey, I play guitar too.
I think, like, okay, I would... You wouldn't be playing like one of those shredder like Ibanez's, like the RGs, but like I would say like an Ibanez, like, or a like PRS would be my guess.
Okay, I could see that. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know, and maybe it's because I know you and I can't play this game very well, but I see you with a semi-hollow or a hollow body guitar. I could,
yeah. That's kind of how I actually. What's funny is I drew a picture when I was 16 or 17 years old I knew a specific spot where I wanted to put a recording studio in my town. And so I kind of looked at the spot and I looked at the view from that window out there. And I went ahead and I just drew a picture of a guitar and some other stuff. And the guitar I decided to put in there was a Super Strat with like a flame maple top and like the Japanese Aerodyne style side binding, and then humbucker single humbucker configuration. It's 6 knobs, 2 toggle switches, and a 5-way selector switch.
Wow.
And this is something I drew when I was like 16 years old. And I'm like, okay. And the reason why I did it is like, I'm flipping through the pages of Musician's Friend. I'm thinking, man, that guitar looks cool. And so I draw that in my dream studio. And I'm thinking, man, I'm so glad that I didn't go buy that when I was.
Yeah. That'd be a good topic for another time. What would your 16-year-old self guitar be?
It would have been that.
Well, I still have my 16-year-old self's guitar, so.
Oh yeah, well I have the guitar, but
yeah,
it wasn't that.
yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of the reason why I like that thing is because I thought, well, it can do that thing could do everything, right?
Yeah,
it's got all those pickups and switches and knobs and it's got everything, right? And so it seems like today the big trend is starting to move away from the giant pedal boards and moving into individual things. And I watch people like Jamie Davis, who has everything he could possibly have, and he went to the Helix for a while, and now he's playing an HX Stomp with a bunch of pedals in front of it. And that pedal board he did, I can't remember which group he put it on, but it just looks glorious. It looks wonderful. It's got all those. It's lined up, and I think he's got a switcher on it and a HX Stomp and a bunch of pedals too.
Yeah.
But I'm hearing of a lot of people using the HX Stomp for everything.
Yes.
And so I know, Mike, you got one of the possible solutions as a Kemper, and I know I've been recently I went back to using my Zoom A3 when I'm leading worship because it's just so much easier to have 3 buttons and have everything set up and not have knobs get twisted around and stuff. But where do you think it's headed, and where do you think you're heading? Towards an all-in-one solution, or towards a pedal board, or towards something in between? And do you think the HX Stomp is a solution for that?
You talking to me or Clifton? Or
just in general, I'm putting it out onto the virtual Skype table.
Well, I can only tell you what I would do with the HX Stomp, and I want one, and I already have a Kemper, and as far as an all-in-one solution, I love the Kemper. I was talking to Andrew from the Get Offset podcast. It was in one of the threads, and we were talking about he likes pedals that don't have screens on them. He doesn't want to have a screen and sub menus and that kind of thing. And to me, I love what the Kemper does with. I can set up a song, I can label it, the BPMs are set in it, the delays are set in it, all the stuff that I need to turn on and off as far as distortions or boosts or any of that, all that is set, and I can save that sucker. And 6 months down the road, if I play this song again, which happens to me all the time, I just load that up and it's ready to go, and I don't have to sit and figure out what I need. So I love it for that reason. The reason I want an HX Stomp for me is I have the Atomic Firebox as a backup, and I like it, but I wish it had some more versatility to it. And so therefore I would use the HX Stomp as a backup, and I would just kind of preload some things in it that I knew I would need, that could get me by on a Sunday morning, and I would have it there. But before I need it as a backup, I would actually probably run it in front of my Kemper and use the different stomps that are in it, or maybe even some of the effects that may not necessarily be in the Kemper. Like, for instance, I think you can get a Timmy pedal or a blues breaker or a clon or any of that in the stomp, and my Kemper does not have those. So I would use it kind of in that way. Also, I may actually use it to run stereo. So set my rig up to where the Kemper's going to be hard left, and the HX Stomp would be panned hard right. I don't know. That's how I would use it, and that's the beauty of it. Is this thing could be your cab or your amp and cab sim, and you can run pedals in front of it, or you can actually use it in front of your amp or your Kemper or whatever else you have, and run it for the effects. I think it's just super versatile. I really think it answers a lot of questions to a lot of different players. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I have some thoughts on that. Obviously, I haven't jumped on the Kemper train or the Helix train yet. Um, I I have been in the back of my mind thinking of something I could use as a direct solution so that I could start playing my electrics in church. Um, and so the Helix or the HX Stomp looks pretty attractive to me. But at the same time, like, what I may need is kind of like what Doug King was talking about last week, is maybe like something like a Palmer pocket amp might do the trick. Something I can put at the end of my chain and use my pedals. Or maybe something else. Or like the amplifier box. But going back to the topic, Josh made a mention about that guitar that had like all those switches and everything. And I think like we as like guitar players in our community, we tend to go back and forth between like one extreme to where we want things to be simple, and then we want something to be like a Swiss Army knife that has everything we'd ever want. And I think right now the pendulum is like everybody is wanting something that doesn't take up a lot of space and has everything they need for the situation they play in, and like getting rid of everything else. But like I remember being on that end of the spectrum years ago as a player where I was playing like line 6 stuff, and the reason why I liked it is you could get like all those different amp sounds in it, and you had some built-in effects or whatever. And then I went to like the Vox had like something similar to it. And I remember my frustration was that like after a while, like I had like cycled through everything in there and I was bored with my tone, and I wanted something that was higher quality, but I also wanted to be able to manipulate the parameters, and not have to do like any deep dig edits. Like I wanted to have pedals basically. And I just don't see pedals going away. Like what I do see maybe in the future is people who develop pedals and they become like cult classics. They make their way into being on these multi-effects units, but like I don't see pedals disappearing. I think that's where the ideas come from. That's where the concepts of new things. It seems like that the Swiss Army knives tend to follow that and then incorporate it later after the fact. And even like things that back in the day I couldn't pull off with my line 6 that I could pull off with pedals, like now the technology has arrived to where like an HX Stomp can do things that you couldn't do out of like a multi-effects unit. You couldn't. I don't know if the Stomp does this, but like I know that a lot of the digital stuff now you can change the order of pedals and send this kind of pedal into this pedal, and like virtually. That kind of stuff is a byproduct of what pedals, like physical pedals, and people manipulating those pedals. That's a byproduct of what years of that has happened. And so I think that the pendulums is going to continue to go back and forth between the two extremes. 1 year at NAMM it's going to be hot to get this one thing, the next year it's going to be hot to get this. So it's hard to say, but I think they're useful tools. I think there comes a point in a player's life when they want to simplify and get rid of all the weight and not have to think about all this stuff. And I get that, but like I think for me as a player, like I want those pedals and to be able to put my hands on and play with things and do new things with those effects. What about you, Josh?
Yeah, I'm kind of debating back and forth too, because then when I think about it, what do I end up doing most of the time when I'm actually playing? And if I'm playing electric, during practice, I'll be fiddling with pedals and like turning them on and off while I'm doing stuff. But honestly, half the time during a set, I might turn on and off the tremolo, which I'll use as a boost, or I'll turn on and off a boost and kind of give me a little bit of a motion, and I'll turn on and off my boost, and I'll turn on and off my my reverb and delay, and that's pretty much it, you know. If I had an I mean, and the other thing that I really think about is all-in-one solutions tend to be getting quieter and quieter as far as their noise floor, you know. And so that was what was huge for me, and that's what ended up bringing me back to my Zoom, is it was so quiet on the noise floor, and so I could use it without any added line noise, and I could use it in such a way where from week to week it would have the same sound. And of course, they discontinued the A3, which I thought was their best acoustic pedal, because they were trying to compete with the Aura. Yeah, it was just working for me because it was quiet, man. You know, it didn't have any added noise. And when you're listening to yourself through in-ears, any added noise is super noticeable. Yes. And when you have vocalists who are listening to you, which happens more when you're leading as opposed to being the electric guitar. Because I'm honest, I mean, the vocalists probably have me off as electric guitar player, but they have to have me on as a lead. And so when you have them listen to them, they're like, "What's that noise? What's that buzz? What's that little bit of sound?" And it's like, man, it's the guitar breathing, you know. And I think that right there is honestly why I swing back and forth, and I'll just rip half the pedals off my board sometimes, because there'll be a sound that was never there before that all of a sudden is there, where you don't really get that too much as long as you have the option to do like a battery backup or something on a effect pedal, because all of a sudden there's a ground loop or something. You don't have that noise that it gets added in, even when you're using the best cables. I mean, I'm using sinusoid almost all the way through my electric board, and I've tried both ways on my acoustic, and there'll be times where I'll just get noise, man. And it's like, I think that's why a lot of people move towards the Helix or towards the HX Stomp.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think the more that you have people moving towards in-ears, which I think is going to become more and more common. I think it's going to even become more common in clubs and, you know, in clubs and bars and restaurants and stuff as that technology gets cheaper and cheaper. Boy, wouldn't you rather have, like, if you're the solo acoustic guy, wouldn't you rather have one of those Bose linear arrays, set it up in 5 minutes and not have to set up a wedge, or have an in-ear setup so that you can run your slightly larger stuff or your linear arrays where they need to be, and you just plug in a set of headphones when you're playing that actually that save your ears a little bit? Then I think that noise floor that is going to be acceptable is going to go lower and lower over the years. You know, it's going to drop down and down and down to the point where people are going to hear their cables, you know, where the audience might not hear it, but they'll hear it and they'll feel it and they'll be like, something's wrong, you know.
We'll all become Jeff Beck. We'll hear our cables.
kind of, except for he's super happy with he doesn't care about the buzz and stuff.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I've never gotten Jeff Beck anyway, but
no.
I've never gotten those old guys that doing that kind of stuff. I mean, it missed me. Yeah. It missed me completely. I mean, I don't see the mystical side of it. It's you're flipping wanking on guitar. That's what you're doing. And it's fine. It's fine. Go do that. Go enjoy yourself. Just normally you should do that in a quiet, private place where you're not bothering anybody else with it. What you do in your own house is your own business.
Oh my goodness.
Can I jump back in here and change the subject from what Josh is talking about?
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Back to something Clifton said was that you like your pedals. and you don't see pedals going anywhere. And I can tell you that in my Kemper community, I'm seeing guys who prefer their pedals, and therefore they are getting rid of their Kempers, or at least not using their Kempers as their primary thing, and moving to the HX Stomp because they can create a pedal board with their Strymons and, you know, whatever else pedals that they like to use. They prefer that. And so therefore they like the pedals, and the HX Stomp fits on a pedal board, and that becomes their rig. And I think before we see pedals go away, I think we'll see amps go away. And especially as more and more people, now I'm not saying they're going to totally disappear. I mean, you're always going to have amps around. I mean, it's just, I think that's going to be, they're just going to be around. They're not going anywhere. But I do think, especially guys who do what I do, who play week in and week out at a church, who are now running in-ears, I think you're going to see a lot less amps show up at church. And if you think about it, even in the amp community, you have things like, who's the company that came out with the milker, or the dairy cream, or the 5-watt?
Milkman.
It's a tube amp, but it sits on your pedal board. Then you have
Blue's doing that too. Lots of people are doing that.
Yeah,
I was going to mention that next. That's where I see it going. Or maybe the next Kemper that comes out is going to be this just slightly larger than the HX Stomp.
Don't hold your breath on a new Kemper anytime soon.
Well, probably not. But I'm just saying it won't have to be Kemper.
I tell you, we're all wanting a floorboard, all-in-one floorboard unit for sure.
Yeah, rather than the toaster oven type thing. I mean, I can completely understand, and that's what I would. I mean, I seriously looked at that Quilter micro block.
Yeah,
and then they got that new one that came out. That's like, man, if I needed that would be the thing. If I needed an amp regularly, or if I needed to go back and forth between, because I was like, the micro block just didn't have the stuff that I wanted on it.
Yeah,
that new Quilter has everything you'd need on it. Like, you could dial in an amp sound. It's got direct out. It's got a cabinet out. It's got everything you need.
Yep.
And so I could totally see. I think you're probably right. That's where the HX Stomp was a game changer, because it's a small thing that can be either a piece of your rig or your whole rig.
Yeah.
And it's clean enough and it works well enough that it's going to be good enough to sound good in the front of house and not give you a lot of noise in your ears. But yeah, I mean, Clifton, I mean, the thing is, you sound so good when you're moving air. When you're moving air,
I'm addicted to that, and it's hard for me to get away from it. But I am open to something direct. I just, I battle between the feeling comfortable playing my acoustic all the time. Kind of like I could get away with that being my guitar, in that, especially in worship and church.
Yeah.
That it's, it's. I put a lot of thought into, okay, if I'm going to play electric, it's going to be this way. And so I just haven't pulled the trigger yet. But I love moving some air on an amplifier. I mean, like, I have to keep telling myself no. I'll flip through, like, Facebook Marketplace and see, like, a really good deal on a big old huge amp. And it's like, that's kind of where my gear lust still, like, I'm tempted to go chase after that stuff, because like I haven't totally stopped my infatuation with it. But like having the Princeton it's enough, I just it's still like I see, it's kind of like that meme where the guy's like got his girlfriend beside him, but like he's got like this girl that looks very similar to his girlfriend walking by, and he's like turning his head to look at her. Like, I'm kind of that way with amplifiers. Like, I can't, my mind, like, still races with amps,
But man, could you imagine back in the day telling everybody, oh, no, everybody's going to be after 5-watt amps, back in the, like, 90s.
Uh-huh.
No, or like when you're in your first little basement or garage band. No. In 20, 30 years, you're not going to want that 100-watt amp. You're not going to want that stack. You're going to want a little 5-watt amp with a 12-inch speaker that weighs 50 pounds. Or you're going to be plugging into something, and everything you do is going to be through headphones.
Oh,
Man, I could not imagine that.
yeah,
back then.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Michael was talking about that YouTube channel, 5-watt something.
World.
What was it called?
5-watt World.
I watched a couple of their videos for the first time today, and they were talking about the Fender Champ and the Fender Princeton, and like he kept making this statement that 15 watts is the new 100-watt or the new 50-watt. Like that's like in today's culture, like having a Princeton is about as loud as acceptable as you can get, right? In most places, unless you're playing like some festival, right?
Yeah.
And he was talking about like the magic in the Princeton and the Champ, and how you can get like some amazing tones out of them, especially if you mic them up. And of course, I don't have to tell everybody that, because I mean we all know this now.
Everybody knows that, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think there is something magical about moving that air, though.
Oh man, it feels great.
Yeah,
I can tell you that. I mean, that's the thing, is it feels good, and it
Yeah.
kind of makes you sound better than you are. I think sometimes. I mean, I know for me it makes me feel like I'm a better player if I crank that amp way up and just have it blowing at my face. It's like, oh yeah, that. Now I'm a guitar player. Yeah, for sure. But I even remember back in the day being at like gear forums, and people would be talking about, well, what do I need to actually play a gig? And the minimum people were saying was like 50 watts. They're like, you can do it with 50 watts, but you're better off with 100.
Yeah, and you need a 212 combo at least.
Bare minimum, 212, 50 watts. I mean, you might be okay. Your 30 will be all right, but you'll have to have it all the way up. And, you don't have much range there. You're not going to have a lot of headroom. And today it's like, man, you bring a 15-watt amp to places, and half the time you're too loud.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, it's just crazy how much those things have changed. And then we going back to our other topic. It's like I don't think we really know, because I don't think anybody could have anticipated that. Even 15 years ago, even 20 years ago, that was the way it was going. I mean, for everybody, not just like those big pop acts where the guitar is just a stage decoration.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It's crazy how things have changed over time. I remember going to like concerts, like watching Delirious, and like they'd have like the guitar player, I think like Stu G would have like 2 amps going. Like I think he had like a Vox on one side, and I don't know like what he had on the other end, but like I'd be like front stage with all that like coming right at your face, and like it was amazing. And I think that fed a lot of that, like for me, like a lot of that wanting to chase down these huge amplifiers and find, like I spent several years where I was playing stuff like twins and basemans and super reverbs, and that stuff just infatuates me, because I think there is something magical about multiple speakers, playing at one time as opposed to a single.
Oh yeah.
But if you turn it down, they don't sound that magical.
No, man. That's
Exactly.
the thing. You got to push them. Yeah, that's totally right. Yeah. What do you think about that, Mike?
Well, I do like playing with an actual amp, sound moving. But that being said, in at least the way that I play at church, I'm not going to get that anyway. I can't put an amp on stage with me and feel that. And I would rather much have something like a Kemper or a HX Stomp, where basically I'm getting the type of breakup that I want or the sound that I want without the feel of it necessarily. But I think the Kemper, most new stuff that's coming out sounds right. I think it sounds like the amp that you would hear. It may not have the same feeling that you would get, but who's getting that anyway? Unless you are cranking it right behind you, I don't know that many people who are actually getting that thing. I'll throw this out there too. I listened to a podcast called Tone Junkie, and he's a guy in the Kemper world, and he makes profiles. And I listened to his podcast yesterday, and he said that he thinks that amps won't ever go away, like tube amps, but he thinks they'll be more like muscle cars. Like, people will still love them and collect them, but as far as them actually being out and about and used on a regular basis, he just doesn't see them continuing like that. So, which I thought was an interesting thought.
Yeah.
So anyway, y'all can take that with a grain of salt, but I thought that was an interesting thought.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see somebody, even at church, being able to use something like a Champ or anything that's like a 5 to 10 watt amp, because as long as you've got acoustics on stage, if you got an amp on stage somewhere that basically is feeling really nice at acoustic volume, I think that there's still a place for that, and there'll be a place for that for a long time, where you can have an amp cranked back at your head, facing your head, and have a mic on that amp, and it'll be okay. It won't. Your sound guy is obviously going to prefer you to put that in ISO box, or to have a board solution. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's really hard to say though, man, where that's going to go. I like that muscle car idea. I think that's probably pretty close to the truth. It's like you're gonna have these guys with the AC30s. I mean, sitting in their closets because they have no place to play an AC30, where it's gonna be sweet,
And they can all sell them to me when they get tired of them and want to sell them at bargain basement prices. I will buy them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Clifton's home for wayward amps. You're gonna have those, and you're gonna have a bunch of B3s, a bunch of Hammond organs, and Kristen's gonna be like, "We need to be able to walk around in here."
Oh man, I would hate to think what would happen to me, like if I was left to my own devices, like living like a hermit out in the country or something, with a whole bunch of.
You'd be one of those guys you'll see the people with a bunch of muscle cars up on blocks, half done.
Yeah.
In their front yards. You'd have like a bunch of muscly giant. You'd have like Stacks and AC30s and what are those Basemen and stuff like that, just sitting in the front yard with tarps on. And then off to the side there'd be like an organ section with about 5 or 6 old organs with tarps on them, and I could totally see that.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
But that'd be living the dream, right?
It would be.
Yeah. All right. So that's full circle. That's going from how many things do we need to let's find extra space for our obsession.
I know. There's such a duality to that, isn't there?
Yeah. Because I mean, I can't say that I don't want a jazz master. I'd love to have a jazz master.
Yeah.
I just don't see myself. I mean, it's like I would have to dedicate myself to that guitar to use it. I can't say I don't want a like a AC15, but it's like I have no use. I have zero use for it. Zero use for that, or a Blues Junior, or I mean, I could, or even a 5-watt tube amp. I've thought about getting one of those for a long time. It's like, what the heck am I going to use it for?
Yeah, No, it's I guess it's kind of like it's tools versus toys, right?
Yeah. For sure.
Well, I guess that kind of rounds out our topics for tonight. I had one more thing that I wanted to kind of throw in here, since this is a WorleyBirds episode. Kind of gives me an opportunity to pitch something that I wouldn't get to on an interview. But kind of wanted to drop an announcement here. There is something new coming out here, and I don't have a definitive timeline, but it's going to be within the next few weeks probably. so be on the lookout. But there's going to be a pedal that is going to be a special pedal that is going to be a collab with Spruce Effects that we're doing, and it's going to be called the WorleyBird. And so I am really stoked about this. This has been something that I've been talking to Brian, started talking to Brian with it almost a year ago, and it's just kind of evolved into a whole project. And so I'm not going to give too many details about this because I'm going to wait till some demos come out and it's ready to be sold. But just kind of wanted to drop a little teaser there for you guys, that you are aware, and it's be on the lookout for it. And I think it's going to be something that's very near and dear to my style of playing. So it's totally, everything about it is WorleyBird.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Everything about it is very, very unique to the personality of this podcast, and I guess myself. It's an extension of myself. So I can't wait for you guys to see that. And there will be some demos coming out in the next few weeks. So with that said, I haven't made an announcement about this in a while, but there are WorleyBird t-shirts. I started getting some questions about this recently, and people have been ordering these, and to my amazement, I'm not very good at self-promo, but there are some WorleyBird t-shirts, some different designs up on my Threadless store. If anybody's interested in that, and if that's your thing, it's there, and hit me up. I can send you a link. But so yeah. Well, guys, I've had a blast just catching up, and kind of I think it's been before Christmas time since we've had a WorleyBirds app, and I'm excited to for our listeners to kind of hear what's going on with everybody, and kind of a laid back episode. And so I hope everybody's enjoyed it, and we'll keep the discussion going. Go over to the Facebook group, and we love to talk about these episodes and keep the discussion going throughout the week. So anyways, would love to hear from you guys and our listeners, and we'll talk to you guys later.